Sat. This is heel bark remover injection. Removal of this sticker is the most illegal thing you could do. I will cart your ass to jail over even accidental removal of this sticker. Just leave it on your couch cushion and go about your business if you don't want to wind down in lockup, or wind up in lock down, depending on the prevailing atmospheric residue at time of said lock. We grew up with things like this stuck on tiny tags all over our pillows, footwear, and shelving units. You cannot imagine the terror that bakes up at you out of a lungfish you've trapped in the cellar, but it sneaks up on you and curdles your mind. And before you know it, you've eloped with a manta ray you barely know across state lines, and the entire might of the Canadian Mounted Police Force is galloping like a pole vaulter at you. And you find yourself being one of 1,000 so-called likely voters as you pummel your pumice stone with a year's worth of fingernails at once, and it just won't wash down the sink. You overjudged, misunderestimated, and now you're in a crucible with historic witches, and you suddenly grasp that knowing how this story goes does little to help you escape. Pummel your pole vaulting fuel with x-rays, bombarding your grain with radiation in the hopes it might sprout a little more bread fueling per acre. Spatulation grain hastening speculation that remits its own permit before it permits its own remit. What recursive thoughts, these dookie dots pouring out of me like infected snot. I snorkeled a lot. Now I got shot by a manatee who thought I was an otter on dock when he pegged me in the neck with his Glock. Now I need a stroller to walk. Oh well, meow meow bok bok. I'm a chicken tuna turkey ranger, a splayed flange of phalanges and feces and viscous fascia and Reese's Pieces and Fresca and Freshetta pizza and cram, dangerous fringe and vicious slam and insidious defeat treatises. That's why I keep blabbing but seldom repeating. Free-feeding dinkum pack out of free feet tours an hour fate north of the discus brocade. I had a hamper blinder on for the invisible thickness, bearing witness to my reduction in fitness even as I had an emission conversion slander for risible fishes, indivisible scamper binders, regurgitation shark, nautical barks like a sea lion or otter on deck for a walk in the park featuring organs and dark, and sheds full of guts plucked out and parked out back like a van in the alley, but really it's oozing piles of glands in a valley of the dowels because we whittled out different length rods to represent vowels and tucked them in. Church organ piping, and then we got wiping because the polished metal was unvarnished. Sliding through the tubing because the diving was untarnished, and reducing all the airflow like a scarecrow in a garden who got a sudden hankering for the radishes and no birds needed to reduce crop yield in that gumdrop's top field. The scarecrow was worse for the crops than the birds he had tossed. So it all comes out a wash. Crop, tosh, tosh. I had a snail sandal stuck to my slug stocking, so taking stock of my lock and barrels, I shot a warning cannon across the top floor of heightened frightened industries, skunkery crystals, and blaze rod palace shanties. We sang like drunk pirates unto the dead of night, because we had shark gems cradled in our harbor thresh for the time our burled ivory spokes shoot out. Because without a paper notice from Queen Grelliant herself, you had to shovel at least 15 hours of goose grease for the Lord and Lady every season. As a showing of mastery and flannel to each recumbent infusion of darkling cresses and tress-ravishing shadow radish hunters that poke their head out of the snow, the first frost of the season, and plunge back into the permafrost once their sickling bellies are full. Dark trowel bellowed out of my own bowels one night this week after 3 a.m., and I became certain I was being watched by a glower committee filled with billiard cheaters and flax paddocks. I didn't crisp him the way I'd been told as a child, but in many ways the ways of our forefathers and five mothers were being revealed as little more than a pile of crockery and towel redemption in the square of the largesse principal's primary field office, where a collection of trowels, maps, glaives, gravel, and shards of credos long since dispelled by clock towers and mask factories. A small induction to limp gravy and sham prancing gloss hospitals drained every C word by the gravy. Oversight embargoes crispening levers, crate frying gland hampeners absconding with brittle chalk, and cracking wax shatter shorn and clicking rickshaw antler sellers, and attic chandelier caving carbuncles pierced with ceiling shackles, and annealing solution made photovoltaic with aged gravy and spread banter banner buckles, bearing too much freight.